Hello, welcome to today's HR Huddle. I'm Tamera Loerzel, and with me is my partner, Jennifer Wilson. Thanks, Jen, for joining me today. We are here to talk about talent and people, and Jen just said to me, partners are people. And I was like, that's a revelation. So that means that we should be, treating them like we do everybody else, and assigning a shepherd and expectations and coaching and mentoring and all of that. And so we thought we should just spend some time on what that might look like. But before we jumped into what that might look like, maybe we should talk about an objection that we hear often. And that is that I'm a partner, I don't need that. Or I'm a partner, I'm above that. In the case of maybe goals or 360s or feedback or anything like that. And you might hear that maybe from some partners, but sometimes we see it culturally that the partner group has that feeling or that approach. And they're missing out. They're missing out on their growth and development. They're missing out on clarity about what their expectations are, what the expectations for them, and how to win. What does winning look like as a partner here today, going into the future at the firm that I'm in? And we think that the talent folks, the HR professionals that we've been talking to on these HR huddles, could directly influence this and help drive some strategies and buy-in and benefits, that they could actually see the benefits and appreciate investing in our partners, maybe more than we have in the past. So I'll pause there, Jen, and see if there's anything you'd add to that before we get into some of the maybe must-haves that go with partners, our people too.
That's great, Tamara. Tamara and I have encountered firms where partner development, partner feedback, partner shepherding, care, concern, bringing them along, that like is no one's responsibility, or it's the managing partner for all partners, or HR, the talent function, has no role in it.
Right.
And I mean, we encounter it frequently. And so we thought that when we're talking about talent and HR, that we wanted to put the partners in there, like they're people too. They also, all the things we're trying to supply to our traditional talent levels should be applied to partners as well. And so that isn't a new school of thought, I don't think. I think in most companies or corporate organizations, officers and management, they're managed. They get performance appraisals. They get feedback. They get benefits. They're treated like talent. So we just wanted to start there. Like, that should be how we think of our partners, and we should create a culture where partners see themselves as part of talent. Now, I know operating agreement, there's differences. I know compensation, there's differences. I know depending upon the structure of the partnership or the corporate entity, there's differences. But there don't have to be differences to, we want it to be a great culture that invites partners to stay and grow and learn and mature and ultimately retire with our organization. We want our partners to feel that somebody here cares about them. When Tamara and I were talking about this subject today, she said, yeah, I mean, like, who cares for them? Who cares about them? Who cares about partners? And I said, well, I guess traditionally the managing partner has to carry that load, or if your firm is big enough to be divided into service lines or industry groups, maybe the industry group or service line leader looks after the partners assigned to them. But we think that there should be real clarity to that piece. Like, who do I report to? A lot of times it's like partners is becoming a partner is like scrabbling up some really hard mountain climb or something. And I get to the top of it and I stand up and I'm there and I don't need anybody else and I don't need any help and I don't need any feedback, and I'm just going to do my partner job now. And that's just such a strange way of thinking, but it is common. And so, like, creating a culture where people expect, no, partners have a development program, and not just partner in training program, because I know people on their way to partner still get some help, but actually partners in the job are going to get some assistance from us in that they're going to have learning opportunities, maybe even their own learning roadmap. They're going to have a shepherd who's meeting with them regularly to see how they are and how their workload is and how they're doing against stated objectives. They're going to have clear expectations for their role, maybe even a role description or a list of things that they own that are super crystal clear to them. So there's not a murkiness. A lot of firms say things like, well, that's partner level, or that's partner responsibility, or that's a partner activity, but like, do all the partners own all the same responsibilities and activities? No, not usually. And so it's becoming a partner in most firms is like a black box. People don't know, well, how'd my role change? What are the duties and responsibilities? So anyway, there's a lot here to think about, but we think it's pretty murky and pretty undermanaged right now.
Well, and that's where I would start, Jen, where you just were. When you were going through that list, I was thinking about new partners. And, all of a sudden they become a partner and it's fire hose, first of all. And they didn't know what they didn't know. So they're in partner meetings, watching partners make sausage and had no idea that there's not this playbook or manual or, they're smart and they've been doing this. And, but we don't know how to manage in 2024 with what's going on in the economy and the election and uncertainty around the world and talent and pipeline. And, so we've got to figure this out. And that can be very scary for partners. And so talking about, what to expect when they become a partner, having them shadow even before they become a partner is ideal, having them participate in partner meetings that don't have to do with comp or, those kinds of discussions. But there's, planning conversations or, preparing for, the fall or whatever it might be that they could participate in. And then what are the expectations of a partner compared to a senior manager or a director, whatever your levels are? And how do I shed my work and my responsibilities as a senior manager and director and develop others to step into those roles, which, by the way, we should be doing and delegating all the time. We should be doing that ongoingly. And so, we have to have really clear expectations about what the differences are, how to transition those responsibilities. And then what are the new expectations? A lot of it's meetings. A lot of it is, different activities that the partners are engaged in or responsible for, oversight, if you will. And like Jen said, not everybody is, but in a smaller firm, you might be. And so figuring out what that looks like and, coaching them through and having a really strong coach that first year for sure. And then, assigning, how do we, progress each year after that? What does that look like at each stage as a partner? So, and I'm just thinking of another young partner who took on the audit service line role, and from a retiring partner, who there's no job description, there's no roles grid, there's no definition to it. And so we're like, well, what if we actually define that? He's like, oh my gosh, that'd be great. I'm like, feel like I'm flying blind here, making it up best I can. And how I do it, by the way, isn't how she does it. So, creating that level of expectation, and he's got a very particular role, is important. And, then mapping it to what are the expectations of the service line leaders of the other practice areas? Where should we be, in concert together? Where should we be collaborating together? So anyway, having those, definitions, I think is really important. But that first initial year or two, I think is critical.
And I think even in a very small firm with one or two partners, clarity of role is crucial. And we tend to, like, I've heard people say, make the role your own. I love that statement, except for you can do that until I'm super disappointed you didn't do that thing I thought was in your role. It's that's what we do.
Your role was not how I would define it.
The role you made of your own is disappointing to me. So how about we just agree to the role, and every partner's role can evolve. So it's not set in stone, but documenting who owns what, who's responsible for which pieces. And within any larger partner group, like, what is kind of the makeup of my role? What percentage of my time am I spending on client service? And what percent am I spending on people development? And do I have other internal responsibilities or roles or processes? Where am I supposed to be in terms of like expectations for deliverable on business development? Am I a business developer that you're kind of hoping does 50 grand in new business a year? Or am I $500,000 in new business a year? And we're just not very specific about these things. And so it's hard to win. It's hard to win as a partner. Now, when the firm's performing well, when revenues are up in double digits like they have been, and profits are way up, mostly because we don't have enough people. So we can't pat ourselves on the back too much for that. But when we are in what I'm going to call an up performance market firm-wise, it's easy for us all to sort of feel like we're winning, but I want to remind everybody that sometimes what goes up comes down. And if we end up in poorer performance times or more difficult times as a firm, that's when people start pecking and picking at each other at the partner table to say, well, you're not doing what I thought you should do, or you're not doing as much as I am. And so we just think that definition of responsibility and an annual assessment of what are my deliverables, what will I be delivering to the firm this year, and what's my homework for a 12/31 or whatever my year end is, that's really critical. And then what resources do I need? Am I going to have some additional learning? I hope that we have learning plans for partners. People complain about partners not keeping up or not going to conferences. Those partners never go to conferences. And I think to myself, who's managing those partners? Like, they should be encouraged to go to the conferences. We need to help them choose the conferences. If they're not comfortable going to the conference alone, somebody needs to take them and shepherd them and show them the way. Like, sometimes I hear some of that stuff and I think, who's running this show? It's sort of like we stand back and say, gosh, I wish our partners would, sharpen their saw. Well, how about we help them with a plan to do that? And, so those are a few critical things: a learning plan, clear goals or deliverables expected, clear role description. Tamera, another thing is, feedback and performance management.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to talk about that a little bit.
Exactly. I think that was right next as you were counting them off on your fingers. Like, feedback comes right after that. And we have to give feedback against those expectations and those goals. And it's really difficult to give feedback when, in general. Most of us, don't like it. It's not like our favorite thing that we wake up to do, and, maybe conflict avoidant in the profession, but also nice. Like, they're my partners. I don't want to, offend anybody. And we have all of our reasons. But if we don't give feedback, then we are not going to be able to get the performance we're looking for. And it starts to hinder our relationship. It starts to cut at our relationship. And so we have to be careful of that. It begins to put a wedge between us because I have grumblings or complaints or disappointments that are not being expressed. And I have to figure out, did I convey my expectations so that my expectations were communicated? First of all, that's number one, where Jen was. But then if they were, we have to give feedback against that. And so sometimes it's developmental, like growing, like this, new audit service line leader I was, talking about. I can't expect him to perform against any specific things. His, first few months, first year into the job, we're defining it. We're teaching him how to do it. We're trying to, figure that out. But then after that, what are the, measures or metrics that we're expected him to perform, for his practice area, people, sales, all of those things. So feedback is important. And then we have to be clear, speaking of roles, who's responsible for giving that feedback. In a small firm, maybe it's a managing partner. In a larger firm, my audit service line leader might have 3 or 4 partners that report to that person. Or in the tax, they might have, some. And if they have more than, 6 or 7, maybe 8, that starts to be too many. And we have to say, who are our people that we can start to split that up, just like we would with our staff, just like we would with our other team members. We wouldn't assign 8, 10, 12 assignees, coachees to people to shepherd and provide feedback and, meet with on goals and performance and help them with their learning plans. So we need to, look at the same thing with the partners.
Yeah, span of control is like 7 max direct reports, and that's too many probably. It's hard, and so for sure we have to create some sort of a, I don't know, a triage, diagram of who's going to be providing feedback and who's going to be shepherding and who's going to be, aiding our partners in meeting their goals and meeting their learning objectives and meeting the cultural and citizen expectations that we have as an organization and all those things, right? So I like that, Tamara, that we have to look at numbers too. Not just say, oh, I'm the audit department head, I guess I have, 13 partners I have to manage. That's impractical. And it won't probably happen if I also have a line of business clients that I'm managing, or, really a whole bunch of other internal responsibilities already in that role. So I love that idea of looking at how we can organize. Sometimes firms will take members of the management committee or executive committee or, sort of our best people developers at the partner level and make those assignments. And that makes a lot of sense to me to do that. The other thing that we should think about here is we have to invite a culture of feedback and a culture of development and engagement of partners. We have to introduce this to our culture as something that we value and we think is important. And so for some of you, we're saying this and you're like, yeah, we're doing this, and this, and we're good, and maybe we could enhance it here. Yay for you. There's a lot more people that will hear this that will think, I don't have the invitation to do any of this right now. Like, this is, our partners are like, HR stay out. HR stay out of, you can help me with my people problems, but there's no problem over here. So they've got their hands up. And then second, you may not have a culture that invites feedback. And so some of this is a cultural discussion. Like, what are we committed to? Culture to us is the way it feels to work at and with your organization. So it's the way it feels. And it usually has like adjectives you could use, and those are both positive and negative. Sometimes a place can feel, fun and collegiate and growth focused, but also bureaucratic because their processes are full of red tape or something, lots of steps or whatever, lots of checkoffs. And so there's positives and negatives to our cultural definition. Where does your cultural definition fit related to this subject of partners are people too, and partners should be developed, and partners should perform, and partners should be open and inviting of feedback and willing to give it and get it? So I think that's something to examine, and it might require some new discussion at the partner level or at the executive committee or management committee level to say, hey, let's all watch this HR huddle and talk about introducing the idea that partners aren't above development or feedback, and that not only are we not above it, we're super committed to it. We're going to get better from it. We're excited for it. I mean, there's a whole bunch of ways of making it like awesome and fun and something that will make us better and elevate us, differentiate us from other firms, make people want to work here. I know that if you work in an organization where the leaders are committed to get better and willing to look at themselves and willing to look at things that don't work, when you have that, people like working there.
Right.
And they're more likely to stay.
Right.
If you have an environment where you better not say that in a meeting because someone's going to take offense and, go for your jugular, or smack you down in that meeting. So be cool and, don't talk to him. He doesn't take feedback at all. When you have that, it's a little bit less of an engaging, inviting environment, and it's more likely that the motivation and engagement of the talent would be lower. So there's another positive reason to do this is that it'll create sort of I'm going to call it a more fluid, positive, hopeful culture when people feel like the leaders are trying to get better. And it makes it easier to give feedback to talent when they can give feedback to you. they,
Right.
they just take it better than just always a one-way dialogue about how they could improve.
Well, and young people are used to getting feedback and like real-time feedback in multiple ways, multiple means, electronic, verbal, et cetera. And so your young partners are used to that also. They are expecting feedback. They don't expect it, if you've maybe had it to their manager and then all of a sudden it's cut off, that's like disjointing for them, and they expect it because they value feedback. So, providing mechanisms to be able to do that, creating that culture, maybe doing some 360s every couple of years and getting well-rounded feedback. So we can talk about perceptions and, what am I, portraying out there, and how is that aligned with my self-awareness about how I think I'm performing or communicating or whatever, managing, whatever it might be availability, like the list is long. But that's valuable. And then we can also work more in concert together. We can be more unified in our approach in what's expected of a partner, and how we are going to each contribute to the firm's goals and vision and mission. And that just makes it clearer and better, for all. So I think that's important for us to consider. So we hope you take this back. Did you have something else to add, Jen, before we wrap up? Yeah. So we hope you take this back and, discuss it maybe with your partners, maybe your board or your management committee, and just talk about, what are we doing well in this area, and what could we add to, really create this idea of how do we invest in our partners? How do we have them develop, grow, produce against goals, perform, value feedback, encourage that culture. And it will trickle down. So we were glad that you were here with us today. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Let us know if you have any thoughts or questions about this that you've been implementing, or that, questions about what we discussed, and any ideas for future HR huddles. We would love to hear them. So thanks. Have a great day.